Hello. Oh, so the boys on the yard just recently, most recent episode of like the week fucking like March like 17th or some shit. Recently did this tier list where they ranked all the different kinds of gamers, and I wanted to give a shot at it because very interestingly, Ludwig wasn't there, so it was just Nick, Aiden, and Slime, and they all sort of have fighting game backgrounds. Specifically with Melee, they are all like old school Melee heads and are still sort of Melee heads. From what I understand, Slime now plays like Valorant a lot, uh, and I'm not sure if Nick and Aiden play any other games. uh, Aiden plays Smash Bros. Melee, and he plays Mario Kart Wii. That's all I understand. And Nick is just a chill guy. But I come from, I'm much younger, and I come from a FPS shooter background, so I thought I would give this tier list a try and see if I have any differences. The other thing I have done is I've added a lot more tiers that I'm not sure are necessarily required, but I also sort of wanted to talk about. The tier list kind of goes based on two things. So the tiers are gaming legend, net positive, harmless, net negative, whack playlist, jail, and death penalty. And so the list is a bit of a mixture of like how valuable to the culture do you think they are, and how much you would like to talk to them as like a person. You can kind of go either way, no matter like what you're talking about. So I don't know. Just gonna get started, I guess. They kind of Zipper, who is their like producer person, sort of pick out randomly. So I guess I'll do the same. Um, they've updated it. They added Maple Story Girl here instead of Stardew Valley Maple Story Girl. That's lazy. Come on, guys. Um, I think I'm familiar with most of the kind of people on here, except Courage JD, which I know who that is, but I don't know. It's more of a running bit from the list, I think. So I don't know. I guess I'll just start at the top left here. So I'll have what he's having. Okay. This guy, as explained, is someone who I'll put on the camera. Um, no, I won't. I don't have the webcam option. I guess I could add the webcam option. Let me add that real quick. Browser. Uh, Cancel. Add scene, right? And webcam. Okay, there we go. Get me here. This is what I look like. I'm a big guy, right? Certified gamer. So you know exactly what I know what I'm talking about. That's just what that means. So I'll have what he's having, guy. This is someone who essentially is only playing the hot new thing. This is the person who bought Helldivers 2, played it for 2 months, quit, never played again. This is the guy who played Pal World, Lethal Company, fucking only up, chained together, just hits the new game. Um, and I think that this guy is either harmless or net positive. I'm kind of leaning toward net positive. On a personal level, this is, I think, kind of your everyman, so I have no real issues with it. And he's good for the culture. One, because he actually allows these games um, to flourish, right? We would not have had Lethal Company be as big as it did without these guys. And that's good. Lethal Company is a good game. It deserved the success it got. And also, if you're someone who wants to play Lethal Company, which is like a famously co-op friend game, having one of these in your group will always you'll always get that guy for at least a little bit. There is an issue with these guys because I feel like they sort of leave the game behind a little too quickly, um, or they don't do anything interesting with the game. So, like for example, like Lethal Company has turned into a really good speedrun community, such like challenge community, where you try to get to a very high level of day very fast. The I'll have what he's having guy is never interested in doing anything except like a base playthrough for like a week or two. The second you try to do anything extra, they tap out and they go back to like the multiplayer game they're playing in between the releases, which kind of sucks, especially if you really do want to sort of challenge yourself with friends in these kind of games. Okay, we're gonna go next to ARAM players. Sure, the ARAMer. I completely agree with the Yard lads on this one. The ARAMer is someone who plays not the main game, but like a side game mode in the main game. So, for example, in League of Legends, it's ARAM or Arena now, even. In Valorant, it's Spike Rush. In Call of Duty, it's someone who like only plays gun game and nothing else. And these guys are in a weird spot because sometimes they just like have only like maybe they can't play a whole lot and they just want to get on and want to play something, turn their brain off, and then leave and go next to like whatever they're doing next. Which I do sometimes. I'll have like class in an hour, so I'm like, fuck it, I'll run an ARM game. But most often, these are people who are normally either too dog shit or too like self-deprecate, like too they're filled with such a high amount of dislike for the game they're playing, and so they don't want to quit the game because they're addicted, and so they play ARAM. Another version of this guy is like in Smash Ultimate, where instead of playing 1v1s, they only ever play like 4v4 with items. And like they're not having fun, which is also kind of important. Like they just do it because they have nothing else to do, but they don't actually want to try to invest in like a new game because it's just what they know. I think these guys are generally a net negative. They talking to them is often miserable because they have no actual like joy or like real desire in their hobby, and as a culture thing, they're not doing anything ever. Like they're actively hurting a lot of games because they will sit and because there's also this level of smugness they have too sometimes where they like, oh, you play League of Legends? Gross. I only play ARAM, which is the less toxic one. So I'm like I'm better or whatever. And they actively like parasite off the game they're playing. And I think that's bad. The Go Evil. So for me, this guy, I haven't followed esports as much recently, but like to me, the Go Evil is they gave Leffen, and Leffen's certainly an example for this, but for a lot of FPS like esports, the Go Evil is normally just a guy who is just like canceled normally. They either they get in some sort of scandal or they like turns out they were slinging slurs in a private chat or Discord, but people still dick ride them because they were good. The one in my head is Sinatra, who played for the Shock. I forget exactly what caused him to leave. I think it was something like he was texting a minor, but don't quote me on that. I don't want to be sued for libel. Do your own research. But people forever, until he like eventually full quit the game and I think moved to Valorant, we're still just like, but Sinatra's the GOAT. He's the best Zarya player to ever see. Shock would have never won a game without him, despite having like the most stacked lineup of all time in the moment. And then he moved to Valorant, and he still has a large following. So for me, they put him in the gaming legend because of the sort of story that Smash players have with each other, right? Like someone who beats Leffen ends up being in like a good story because he's like the villain or whatnot. But for me, the Go Evil is someone who like gets a following in the esport and then does some fucked up shit and then ends up splitting the community for between essentially the woke left and the people who were like, who cares if he texted a minor? He's the GOAT. And I think these people need to at least be put in, they have a whack playlist, if not just put in jail. And because sometimes it's also not as bad as like texting a minor. Sometimes it is just like, it turns out they got into a fight with a teammate and caused one of them to quit the team or something like that. So it's a scale. Sometimes the go evil should probably be in jail or have the death penalty. Other times they're probably just a net negative. I'm gonna put them in the whack playlist. Let's get me out of here. FPS gamer. So it's important to note that this is not FPS only. It's not someone. There's two kinds of this people. There's someone who has played one FPS game for their entire life. I forgot to add a file. Don't this one right here, Benjamin Grimm. He's just aura farming for now. We'll get to him later. So there's a person who has just played CS:GO for 15 years and have still only played CS:GO, or Valorant or COD, or COD's a bit of a different guy, or Rainbow Six Siege or something. They've picked an FPS game and they've stuck with it. But I think the most common thing is someone who moves FPS game to FPS game almost on release. I used to be this kind of guy where, yeah, new FPS game would drop and then person bored of all their other FPS games because they're mid slash dog shit go, ooh, shiny. And they go to the new game just to play it. And it just being FPS is good enough to sell them on the initial concept. This is right now we're in a bit of a stint where a lot of Valorant ripoffs are kind of coming out. Not necessarily ripoffs, but you have like games like Shroud's game, where you control like the three people. You have the one that has like the cards that you use to like modify the round. I forget what both those games are called. And those are just the kind of games that like they come out and people will just go and play them for like a week and then they stop. Splitgate, another example of this. They can't help themselves but trying it out, especially if it's free to play. I think these guys are also, they might be harmless. They're probably a net no. I think they're net negative. And the reason why, it's actually not due to what they're doing, because I actually think it's a good thing that there are people who will at least try out new games, kind of no matter what, because that can lead to a lot of what ends up being really good games actually having like legs to run on. The issue with these guys, though, and this might be me, like I'm kind of from this community, so it's kind of hard for me to tell, or like to separate this. But for me, in every game I've ever played, every single ounce of toxicity has come from the FPS only guys. Every single instance. Which maybe it's hard because I don't know anyone who like grew up with MOBAs, for example. But every single toxic person I know started with like COD or Siege or Overwatch, and they have just brought that in to every other game they play. For all I know, MOBAs, for example, might have had toxic communities before FPS games did. But every time I see like an FPS only casual go into any game, FPS or otherwise, they're always like, often or not, the most like just the worst, just toxic. There's a lot of people who are this version for other genres, and I think those genres are not nearly, or like on average, those people aren't nearly as like toxic in their games, especially when they cross over to new genres. The FPS only is almost always a toxic piece of shit. Speaking of the always toxic piece of shit, I wanted to find him real quick. Always shit, always mad. Jail. I hate this guy. This is also the Inter, right? They're the kind of the same guy where, yeah, they queue into the game and they get shit on, and then they get really angry. Now, sometimes you can be this person and it's fine because you don't lash out at teammates. But most often than not, they're on the voice mic, they're chit-chatting because they don't have the hands to play the game. And so all the hands they have to play the game just go to the keyboard to type. And they also have so much time to type because they're always fucking dead and in respawn. And so they have nothing better to do except tip-tap on the keyboard about how every other person is the reason they're dog shit, even though this is the 10th game in a row they've been shit on. I think this person is always negative. You can never have this guy on your team and then come out of that game positive. The only reason why is if you can hard carry this person so much that they're just like talking shit the whole game and then you still win and you're goated. But that just doesn't happen as much, especially if you have like a decent MMR system. So normally it's just you struggling to get a win with this guy chirping in your ear, and there's just nothing you can do. Like you can't really talk back because they're dog shit and mad, and so it's not like you're not gonna logic this guy out of this, right? They're just miserable. I think they make games worse. One of the reasons I think they put them higher, the yard fellas, but the reason why is because this guy being on the enemy team is great for you. It feels good. That's your 4K. That's whatever. But I digress because the always shit, always happy fulfills that role phenomenally. Not only is this better for your team, because I would much rather have someone who dog shit making jokes and shit, on the mic than someone like cursing out someone just for being a woman. And if they're on your opposing team, you still kill them and get your 4K. And now they don't start all chatting about how you're like a fat degenerate who's never like left the room or something, despite being a fat degenerate who's never left the room. So I think this guy, if every one of these guys turned into these guys, we would be in a better society. I might shift this around later as we get more people in the death penalty in jail to see where I should draw my lines or whatever. One I want to come out here is the anime racist. So kind of important about these guys is they don't actually play video games. They do in the sense that they will say they do, and then maybe if they're like a streamer anime racist, you'll catch them playing like Valorant or VR chat like once every other day for a few hours. But these are people who essentially have cannibalized a lot of gamers. I know the Yard Boys actually asked about why so many anime watchers are also racist, and I can tell you two reasons. One, back in the olden days, a lot of anime stuff was, like you can only watch it if you essentially pirated it. And those kind of forums like 4chan and stuff where you like kind of do that was also filled with like Nazi people. And there's also this weird idea that Japan is a super conservative bastion of like feminine sexual design and stuff. And so certain conservatives have sort of co-opted that. And combine the two. Like, for example, like Japan is like famously xenophobic. And so a lot of Nazi guys like I'm onto that. Like, look, isn't anime like they just happen to like anime, but then they like learn Japan's xenophobic, and it's like, wow, them stopping black people from entering their country must be what makes anime so good. America could do that, and then they don't think about it anymore, and now they become this weird conglomerate of just the worst person. Also, a lot of these people tend to be like pedophiles, they like lollies, which definitely is very different from pedophiles. Definitely different. And so there's a lot of anime people who have like weird tendencies about children, or at least John children. And it just so happens that a lot of other Nazis have a lot of weird tendencies about children, especially drawn children. And so they sort of coalesce as like, oh, they accept me. We're the same person, despite both actual groups probably killing each other in history. So yeah, this person gets the death penalty. I fucking hate these people. Not only are they miserable to talk to, there's zero benefit to them ever in like any community. I'm on Twitter, unfortunately, a lot, and every now and then I will see one of these guys pop off, normally because like an actual content creator interacts with them, and and then I read it, and it's a mistake every time. Just recently, like 5 minutes before I started recording this video, I was scrolling through Twitter and I forget his name. It's like Benny Fox, Brody Fox, might be Brody Fox. The Yo Mama guy got into like a beef with like this French VTuber person who turns out is like a lolicon racist guy, Nazi person. Says the N word multiple times. Did like a hail, like seg hail salute or whatever. And just reading the comments on that wanted me to shoot myself, like, because there's no actual substance to any of it. It is just, oh, this person is a Nazi pedophile. That's bad. And they go, oh, well, simultaneously, not only is it not Nazi pedophile stuff, it's just lolicon racist stuff, whatever. Oh, but also, this thing you did is also worse than Nazi pedophile stuff anyway. And then they just hit the like no you or like what's wrong with it lol, and it's just miserable. I hate seeing it. I hate being anywhere near it. I'm someone who actually likes anime. You could have never guessed, I imagine. And these people also make those communities way worse. Just death penalty. They might be one of the worst people on here. Um, Hacker cheater. So these guys sort of suck ass. I'm putting them in net negative. So talking to one of these people is miserable, especially if it's the hacker slash cheater that like kind of gets into the troll area where, dude, I've had this in CS:GO a lot, where it's the misery of person on enemy teams obviously hacking slash cheating. They're like literally spin botting, and someone random on your teammate can't help but go, "LOL, nice hacks, bro." And then the hacker cheater always just types, uh, what hacks? You're just dog shit. And it's like, okay, bro, like obvious cheater. Like I'm telling like literal spin botting. And but then like it starts a 13 round argument on whether or not these guys cheating because your random is fucking obtuse and doesn't realize he's being fucked with. And for some reason the hacker cheater thinks it's funny to just go, nah, lol, as he continues to be spin botting. And so you just have to play out the fucking half an hour 13 round game, not only being like hacked upon, but also having to listen to these two fucking idiots argue the whole time. Miserable. That they're the worst. Now any game now and there's a different kind of hacker and cheater which can be kind of fun sometimes. Like if it's not very often, running into a hacker slash cheater who's very obviously spin botting is kind of funny for a game or two, or like a game every now and then, right? Um, there's also like old school like hacker cheaters, like Call of Duty days where they had the fucking mod menu. If they had any sense of humor at all, the game got very fun for a few rounds because they would just essentially like fuck with you. They would just like beam you into the sky and then like make you like I don't know. They you used to do crazy shit. There's that very famous clip of the that game Liar's Bar, which is essentially I forget the actual game it's based on. But the hackers who would just like move the model to look at your opponent's cards. Yeah, what's up? I'm going to pause here because I'm going to eat some food apparently. But yeah, and like those guys are fun. I'll be there in 2 seconds. Um, and also, the hackers slash cheaters are normally very in line. They're very close communities with people who make like applications slash quality of life improvements. So like they're they're not exactly one to one, but like for example, people who make the overlay apps. A lot of them have coding backgrounds and some sort of hacking slash cheating, and not always. And it also could be like personal, like they like fucking hacked Minecraft or whatever when they were 15, and that is something they use to help make the overlays and whatnot. Or they're also similar in communities to things like the pirating community, which I may be a fan of. And so I think there's like, I don't know. The issue with hackers is if the game is too bad, where hackers essentially run everything, like CS:GO or like Apex. At certain points, it is just miserable. It's the worst experience ever. But for the most part, I think they're just fine. You don't run into them too often. There can be positives that come with them. So I think harm hacker slash cheaters like not a bad place to be. Uh, Yeah. Oh, and for the record, I've never really hacked or cheated. When I was 10, I had a really terrible laptop, like that I think I got from my grandma, and it was like 10 years old then. Uh, and it ran Minecraft at about 2 frames a second. And so I downloaded hacks so I could like somewhat play the game. I regret it. Got banned off fucking Mineplex or whatever the one server was. Uh, but that is my experience with the hacking. And yeah, and I'm sure for even though it was like somewhat fun for 10-year-old me, whoever was playing Minecraft Sky Wars or whatever in my game had a bad time, and that's not cool. Anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna go eat. I'm going to stop recording and I'll start it again.